Hi, it's Mandy back with another video. Every time I make a video, as soon as I hit stop, I sit back and I think, oh, I probably have more to add about this subject. So this is what I'm coming to you with now. I'm not going to call it a part two, and I'll find a different title for this, but I basically want to follow up on something very specific with respect to communication and socialization criteria that we use to diagnose kids and youth that are diagnosed with autism spectrum disorders, and compare that to communication and socialization in kids who are not my non-spectrumer categories. And as I indicate in most of my videos, there's a bell curve here, bell curve here. We form a big bell curve in with respect to different skills. So when we think about socialization skills, the video that I made prior to this one was, are we creating autism? And again, not that we are perpetuating creating this diagnosis specifically, genetically, or otherwise. Are we taking and sort of morphing some of the features that we see in the diagnostic criteria over here and assimilating them into a lot of the common population? So what I want to talk about today is specifically nonverbal cues. In the video prior to this, which I would go back and watch it if you can, because it does give a little bit of foundation for where I'm headed here. But I'm talking about how the increase in technology has allowed us to form our communicative patterns in a very different way when we're texting or sending just a snapshot or sending a video where we're talking at someone else, perhaps answering a question, but still just talking at. Even making these types of videos, these are really popular on the different platforms that we're talking at someone. So one of the things that I think that I'm noticing that we are missing is the ability to read nonverbal social cues. And if you're a speech pathologist out there, you're probably nodding your head. Yes, this is one of the most important developmental skills to have. As I mentioned in another video, when we look at infants and babies, when they're typically developing, they're looking around their environment and they're modifying their responses based on the nonverbal cues that they're getting because they don't quite understand all of the words and syntax in communicative spoken language yet, right? So when we spend a lot of time in our devices, especially if you think about a young person growing up, these critical years in elementary school, middle school, and high school are the times where, by history, we learn to refine reading other people's body language, their eye contact, their responses by their smile or the lack of their smile, by the way that they body posture, or if their words don't match their body. And I wonder how much of this is starting to become more difficult for these young people in the non-spectrum category because it just isn't practiced as frequently. Yeah, what do we do instead of responding to someone like this? We send an emoji. We send a picture that represents us. So one, we're not necessarily demonstrating that skill as much in response to a person. And when we get emojis back, we're not practicing interpreting nonverbal responses from others. And this is really important from peer to peer because they speak a different language than youth to adult, right? We have different social rules, or in different situations, teacher to student, how we communicate appropriately, non-verbally and verbally with each other. So I think in elementary school, middle school, and high school, this skill peer-to-peer is getting lost. It's not practiced as much, and we're substituting text and or emojis or visuals for a visual that we would create with our nonverbal person and how we would respond to those cues from other people. So this is a curious art to communication that seems like it's diminishing. I'd love to know your thoughts about this. I think about this often. Again, I do think of everybody as a big continuum, but as you can see now that you're learning me a little bit better, why I categorize persons diagnosed with autism spectrum disorders and those without, to make comparisons and contrast some of the skills just generally and give you some food for thought. So I'd love to know in the comments what you think of this concept. Thanks for watching.